Hi, my name's James Orvis, and in this video we're going to look at how we can create the classic Reese bass sound. We're going to go for that old school warm analog Reese bass sound rather than the modern kind of digital, brittle, distorted sound, which is quite prevalent in a lot of EDM drum and bass type stuff. And basically I want to show you the old style version because I think it's more relevant for the ones out there that are making techno, melodic techno. But I'll show you a few different options, like we'll play with some different oscillators to thicken it up and maybe open the filter and add some distortion as well and give you a few more options to work with this sound. And so to start off, we're going to look at a few different examples. And this first example I've got here is the original Reese bass sound, apparently. That's what I've read on the internet. So correct me if I'm wrong because I know that the internet is full of misinformation. But yeah, so this is Kevin Saunders from 1988 as Reese, and he brought out this track, Just Another Chance. And I read up he used, in an interview, he used an old Casio keyboard to create the sound, but there was people in the production community thought it was a Juno, and I found out that you can make it really, really well on a Juno as well, which is why we're going to use the TAL plugin. So this is the first one from 1988, so let's have a listen to this. So there's the first one. I can't play too much of the tracks because we'll get flagged up for it, for copyright issues. And the next one, this is Renegade, by Renegade, which is called Terrorist. And this comes a bit later. It's like a drum and bass track, just to kind of showcase how drum and bass took this sound and carried the flag for quite a while and is still going with it now. And it's become a very key sound in the drum and bass scene and jungle scene. So there's that one, and then we've got this one that I found as well by an artist called Comics from 2007 called Be True. I just wanted to throw this one in because I really, really liked this when I listened to it. It's got a really, really nice vocal in as well, and a really, really great example of using the Reese bass but in a drum and bass track. So there's the three examples, and hopefully that's give you a bit of scope and idea of the kind of sound that we're going for. So we're going for that old school analog filtered dark sound, which is really, really nice and probably useful for techno. So let's get stuck in. And we're going to be using this TAL plugin, which is replica of, I think it's the Juno 60 or the 106, because I know that the two different versions were slightly different. But either way, it works really well for the Reese bass. So we're going to use this, and I think it's still a free plugin, I'm not sure. You'll have to check. So let's go ahead and take off the sawtooth and put on this pulse or square waveform. And I've got a MIDI clip here with the same pattern that Kevin Saunders used. It's really, really simple and it sounds like this. So there's the basic pattern, and what we're going to do first is we're going to switch this pulse width modulation over to LFO. So the LFO is now affecting this pulse width, and maybe we'll slow the rate down a little bit, and we're going to start to bring this up. Yeah, you can kind of fine tune those to taste with the rate and the pulse width. And the next thing we're going to do is obviously we want to darken the sound a little bit, so we're going to bring down the cutoff. So you can keep the resonance down or you can bring it up. So this is like another option, depending on what sound you want to go for. So we'll leave it around there. I reckon that's quite nice. And the next thing I want to do is to just sort out the attack, decay, sustain and release. So just bring up the sustain so we've got a nice thick sound. There's no attack on there. And also the envelope as well for the filter, we'll leave that down. You could bring it up. I don't know what that would do. Well, that's quite cool, actually. Yeah. So I mean, you could. I'm just going to show you like the Reese bass classic sound, but you could start to manipulate these and make this sound your own using like the envelope and stuff like that, just to add a little bit more to it. But we're just going to go for the classic one for now. So we'll put the sustain all the way up. I think that's pretty much it for this section, and maybe we'll put on the chorus as well. Yeah, we're pretty much there. And just a few other options on here. So we could add in a sub oscillator, and we could add in the saw as well, or we could add both in. So let's try that. So yeah, a couple of options there to really thicken up the sound. We'll leave the sawtooth on because I really like that. And you've also got the noise oscillator as well, so we can bring that in. Yeah, we'll leave a little bit of noise in there, just to dirty up the sound a little bit more. So now we've got the basic patch made, which is really, really easy and really, really simple to make. We're going to add a little bit more to it by adding some processing. So the first thing I want to do, just to add a little bit more analog goodness, is to add this chain, which I use quite a lot on most sounds. And it's really, really subtle, but when you do it over a full mix, it really, really adds to the overall sound. And that's to just add in a tape emulation. So I use the Slate one quite often. And we've got it on like an old school tape there. And you can change the speed to get different kind of sounds out of it. This one works well for sim sounds. And when I'm using this, I always try and have the needle around 7. I just find it's a good place to rest the gain so it's not distorting too much. Because when you distort the tape saturation too much, it kind of thins the sound out quite a lot. So yeah, I usually put it around 7, but feel free to, if you're using that plugin, to do it your own way. And the next thing that I'm going to add in is the channel emulation. Again, normally I usually sit this around 7 to 5, but I've pushed it up quite a bit on this. I thought it sounded a lot nicer. And I usually leave it in the standard settings, which is just this Brit 4K E setting here. Next, we've got this compressor, and I'm a big fan of just using the Slate presets as a starting point. Obviously, we've got a bass, and there's no kind of envelope or attack on it, so I'll usually go for the smooth bass presets. If it's got a lot of envelope, so if you put the envelope on and you've got like the short decay stuff going on, I'll start with the rock bass preset and play around with the attack and release settings and the threshold to taste. I usually leave the ratio where it is, because I find this works really well for this bass sound. So what I'll do is I'll start it here and I'll just start to dial it in, so we get maybe like 1 to 3 dB worth of gain reduction. So around there sits nicely for me. So that's kind of just warmed up the sound a little bit and also tamed the dynamics of the sound as well, because we've got the chorus going on. The sound is kind of moving around like this, so the compression just tames that a little bit. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to add some more saturation. So again, I've turned to the Audiotent pack, which is for the Saturn, and I went to saturation, and low end color really, really works for this sound. And what I did was just kind of played around with these level knobs to balance out the overall tonal balance as well, because this preset, it kind of has an arch that goes down like that, but I just wanted to even it out, so when we do open the filter, it's really level. So let's switch this on. See how that works really, really nicely. So we've added quite a bit of saturation there between those plugins. It's not over the top, it's quite nice, I think. And next, just a really simple bit of EQ, actually, just to shave off that kind of low sub frequencies that are inaudible. So I'll just put a cut around 23 hertz. try not to dampen that very, very bottom end low subtone there on the lowest note. And the next thing is to add a little bit of reverb. I know it's a bass sound, and general consensus is that you shouldn't add reverbs to basses. I think it's completely wrong. I think it's great when you add reverb. It just adds a bit of depth to the sound. And the way that I do it to get away with it, so you're not reverbing the sub-frequencies, is to just put on a filter before it hits the reverb or after. It's up to you. And what I've done here is just used this SSL kind of EQ, but you can use any EQ. And what I've done is just put the filter up to 329 hertz. So there's no bass frequencies really getting into the reverb. And then I've just used this preset, which is a Bright Toms preset for drums. It's a plate reverb, a fat plate kind of preset. And I just find that this works really well for me on bass sounds in my productions. You can use any bass sound. I just really took a shine into this one. And I brought down the decay quite a lot as well. So it's like 300 milliseconds around there. Really short decay. And it's just to add a little bit more depth and thickness to the sound as well, to make it sound a little bit more real and natural. So I'll let you listen to the reverb in solo. So as you can hear when I switched it off and back on again, it's just adding a little bit more realness to those top frequencies as well, the kind of biting frequencies, the reverbs affecting those. And then lastly, is something I've mentioned in other tutorials which I use a lot, especially once you've added like chorus and reverb and things like that, and especially when you're dealing with bass sounds, you want to make sure that it's mono compatible and you've not got a lot of stereo stuff going on in the bass and sub frequencies. So we've not narrowed the stereo width, so we've got a nice wide kind of reverb sound, but we've put the mono maker on around 200 hertz. So normally I would go up to like 240. But with this sound, because the chorus in the bass area really gives it that kind of warbling sound, I didn't want to push it up too much. I could probably bring that down a little bit more actually, to maybe 170. So we're still getting some chorus in the bass area as well, which gives you that classic sound. So let's have a listen to the whole thing now. And what I might do is I might group these and we'll switch it off maybe, and then we'll switch it on and you can hear the difference. So there's a few different kind of things you can play around with there in the synth as well. I noticed that this, the way I've got this set up, has got quite a lot of bite on probably the saturation. So what you could do, if you just want to tame that off a little bit, it depends if you want to go for a dark sound or quite an aggressive sound. So what we could do is use the makeup gain on the FG401 to bring down the gain going into the FabFilter Saturn. So let's just go ahead and do that, and you can hear how you can use that knob or a gain stage, like a utility plugin in between, to just add a bit more bite to taste within your track. So I always check the gain going into saturation plugins and things like that. And you could go into those different bands and use the drive, but sometimes I find it easier to just play around with the gain going into the plugin. So there you go, there's a quick rundown of how to make a classic Reese bass sound. I hope you found this useful, and you go away and try this yourself. And it'd be really, really cool to hear whether you've tried it and you tried some different techniques, like you use some different plugins, different effects and presets, or maybe you just started off with this sound and manipulated it into something different and that influenced a brand new track idea. It'd be great to hear those stories. Please let us know those in the comment section below. And if there's a sound that you want us to show you how to make that sound, let us know that as well, and we'll do our best to put that into our schedule and give you the content that you want. So thank you very much for watching. My name is James Orvis, and I will catch you next time.